are now going to move to the Asian Development Bank, and we're going to hear from Wendy Walker. So Wendy, if you're ready. Wonderful. So if you want to share it.
Yeah, can you see my screen yet?
We can see it. It's not in presentation mode yet.
Okay, just a second.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Adelina and colleagues, and great to see everybody else here on this panel. I've learned a lot and I'm very happy to participate. My name is Wendy Walker, and I'm the Chief of the Social Development Thematic Group at Asian Development Bank. I've been leading some of our work on developing long-term care systems and services and overall on adapting to aging in Asia. I also have a colleague who wasn't able to be here today, Meredith Weiss, who's really running a lot of things on the ground right now for us, and I hope you'll have the chance to interact with her going forward as well. But there are many other people as well in ADB who are working on these issues. So thanks everybody on the panel for having set the scene so well. I can really move quite quickly through the beginning. But obviously our region is equally transitioning, and sometimes extremely rapidly. Everybody knows that the global population will increase from just under 1 billion to just over 2 billion by 2050. And it's anticipated that about 60% of that growth will actually take place in the Asia and Pacific region. There's very wide diversity in countries and how they're experiencing this change. Some are aging much faster than others. We have some of the greats of aging globally, Japan, Singapore, and Korea. And we have also some of the very young countries in the region. So key issues like Pablo raised on NCDs, disability, changes in family structure, women's labor force participation, critical issues about urbanization and migration are really driving factors behind some of the need for long-term care really coming to the public and the policy agenda. If we look at a country like Indonesia, which we think of as a very young country, this is the trajectory over the next 30 years, and it's really quite abrupt and amazing, and it's already underway. And you can see the change as this kind of evidence starts coming to the table, much more attention. Just 2 weeks ago, Indonesia launched its national strategy on aging, which includes long-term care, which actually has taken quite a long time to move through the policy system, but is trying to learn as much as possible from other countries about how to put in the building blocks, not just on long-term care, but what kinds of collaboration need to also happen across all other different sectors. I wanted to put like the top highlights up here up front, so that I don't lose it at the end. But you know, it's a rapidly changing region, and it's increasingly what did I say here? Adapting to aging issues are coming to the fore. The last 5 years have been particularly important for policy making and policy making, piloting, and learning. But the engine is only just beginning to start. Initiatives like the regional review of MIPA and the WHO work on the decade of healthy aging, and all these types of publications and initiatives are only going to help. In terms of the COVID-19 pandemic, it has certainly highlighted the frailties of systems, but going forward, there's enormous competition on areas of focus and funding. So keeping the long-term care priorities on the table is going to be a very big challenge. There's also big opportunities of learning from the aging greats, but there's, and I would include many other countries around the world, but there's great difficulty in direct translation of ideas and approaches, models, and even specific programs to local realities. And that is, that's a big challenge. There is emerging policy development. I just mentioned the Stranas. Mongolia has a new law on elderly. Tonga has a new strategic plan on long-term care. But there's an urgent need for evidence of need and demand, and putting action on the ground is lagging. So the types of tools that Pablo was just speaking about would be, are incredibly important to develop and for us to share among us. Long-term care is particularly challenging because there's a need to conceptualize and coordinate across a range of a really wide range of sectors, but most importantly, perhaps health and social protection. And this is not an easy process. Ensuring financing for and affordability are critical challenges, and clear models and tools are needed. There's a very strong reliance on the traditional family and community-based systems, but the pressure points for change are emerging differently in different countries, and we really have to keep our finger on the pulse of what's driving it. The clarity on what works, how, and why is very difficult. And so all of the new work that's happening globally, including with WHO, STRIDE, and others, is very important for helping us to have clear directions for people to move in beyond the need for policy development to really move to action. And much of the responsibility and momentum, at least in the Asia and Pacific region right now, lies with ministries of social protection. And there's a very slow shift of engaging with health ministries, and that can entail a very large change in the way in which these issues are thought about and the stakeholders for them. And there is also a very big role for education sector in terms of workforce development, and they have maybe been one of the most lagging sectors to really come on board. So there's a huge amount of shift and change happening at the institutional level. Which is also takes time to happen. There's a critical need for capacity building across stakeholders in policy development, in systems development, and in service delivery. And there are very critical debates happening right now in the Asia Pacific region on the role of government, of private sector, of CSOs, and of the public. And these are not always very well articulated. If you want to see a good example of how that has changed and shifted over the last 5 to 10 years, take a look at the policy development in China and of the actual practice on the ground. Opportunities are opening in many countries, regionally and globally, for workforce, for health and care workforce. But this is both an enormous opportunity, as Pablo and others talked about, but it's also a very big stress for the region because it's sucking many people away, and it's a further stress on these family traditional systems and informal caregiving. ADB engagement has been coming from several areas over the last few years, on research, on demographic transition, on financing, on health and social protection, and over the last 5 to 7 years, an effort on long-term care systems and services development, and increasingly now going forward, starting in our China portfolio, but also expanding elsewhere, is a real focus on health and age-friendly urban development. At the core, aging and demographic transition is really at the core of our strategy 2030. And I just want to briefly go over 2 different strands of work that we have. If there's, sorry, any time left. The first is that here's a very quick overview of the kinds of TAs and projects which we've been developing in China, which is the fastest, largest, and most diverse aging population. Aging has been a big part of the different development plans over the last 15, 20 years, and it's really accelerating, and the points of policy effort have been changing a lot. But perhaps in the 12th five-year plan, it started really this idea of the 3-tiered community, residential, community, and home-based care systems. And that's a lot of what we've been focusing on, but you can see that it came from a range of areas I've just described. This is an example of the type of project which we've been putting on the ground. This was work that we were not really prepared for. No MDB is prepared immediately to go into long-term care. It's really a compilation of many of our different expertise areas and the need to tap into others. This project is in Hebei province. It's working in 5 different areas. It has a focus on integrated service model development of that 3-tiered system, development of some new service and skill areas, rehabilitation, dementia care, home and community-based services. And importantly, it has a big component with Yanshan University, which is looking at the human resource development side of this. It has collaborated across the different schools of the university with the business school, in new curriculum development in elderly care management, with the psychology school on geriatric counseling, with the engineering school on ICT and robotics, and with the medical school on caregiving. So we really tried to open up what some of these new skills and job areas will be, and try to build the pathway to that. Other types of projects that we have a couple of projects which have been focusing on trying to develop models of PPP, and also some specific areas like this one in terms of step-down services from after hospital discharge, with the creation of individualized care plans, care management, and linkages to the different parts of the system, really focusing in on trying to build that capacity in that area within the project. We also have a couple of different technical assistances which are working at the regional level. One which was building capacity and opening up this area in general. It's just about to close. It's been going for the last 5 years. It focused a lot on diagnostic studies, capacity building, strategic planning. The next step of that is this innovative community-based care models, which we're doing in 4 different countries, and then some broader work with our economics research department on data and improving data and analysis for healthy and productive aging. Very quickly, that first TA was in 6 different countries, but we also reached out across all countries in the region with this country diagnostics, capacity building, strategic planning on long-term care development, made linkages with centers of excellence and partnerships that have been really helping us to move forward in this area. And now we've moved on to pilots on community-based models, and there's an emerging pipeline development coming out of all of this work in many different areas. These pilots try to develop ideas and approaches building off of the existing local situations. They can vary from, models can vary from community to community, but they have common core principles, tools, and features. This, I'm speaking specifically about the model in Indonesia. And they try to integrate good practices from other countries. The overarching objective is to develop systems and services that are affordable, accessible, effective, and replicable. And this is a quick overview about the type of pilot models which we are engaging in Indonesia, Mongolia, Vietnam. The last one will also be in Sri Lanka. So the one in Indonesia is fairly well progressed, and it has a lot of very interesting components to it. And we've just finished a big program of capacity building over the last year. And now we're starting off also in Mongolia and Vietnam. And in each one of these, trying to build off of some of the systems which they have been trying to build in Mongolia, the active aging centers, and in Vietnam, building off of the intergenerational self-help clubs and the relationship with the primary healthcare system. This is the model that we're working on in Indonesia, which is really at the village level to develop these community care hubs, develop the case management system, link it to the overall MIS system, which at a national level, they're developing on older persons and care, to ultimately improve the primary care for older persons, and also strengthen the multi-sectoral engagement and governance systems across both social and healthcare. I said that we've just finished this big program of capacity building, which is really trying to address many of the building blocks of long-term care, and to help to translate this through all of the participants into what is going to work at the local level. And that's really their translation into the idea of the community care hub, the aged care team, the way in which they'll go about case management. This is a range of the publications which we have been putting out, and we have several others coming down the line. We have a LinkedIn and Twitters on. If you search for Adapting to Aging Asia, you can see a kind of steady stream and the network that we're trying to build and develop across the region and globally. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Wendy. And yeah, we're now back to the internet.